Professor Nixthal's crystalline appendages trembled as she reviewed the latest student transfer file. The holographic display showed something unprecedented in her 3 centuries of teaching at the Galactic Academy of Advanced Sciences. A human had enrolled in her extreme environment survival course. "This must be a processing error," she muttered, her crystalline form refracting light in patterns of distress. The registration system was designed to automatically filter out species unsuited for the rigorous demands of xenobiological survival training. Yet somehow, River Blackwood from Earth had not only applied but received full clearance. The classroom door slid open with a soft hiss, interrupting her thoughts. The morning's first students began filtering in, a group of gaseous aerolians floating in their containment spheres, followed by several towering mantodines with their characteristic clicking mandibles. Each species had evolved under the harshest conditions their home planets could generate. They were the elite, the survivors, the ones deemed capable of handling whatever the galaxy might throw at them. Then River walked in. The human appeared almost fragile compared to the other students, no protective environment suit, no enhanced appendages, just standard academy uniform and a determined expression. Several mantodines reflexively extended their threat displays before catching themselves. "Welcome, class," Nixthal began, her translator converting her harmonic resonances into standard galactic common. "I see we have a diverse group this term." Her gaze lingered on River, who met it steadily. "As you know, this course has a 60% mortality rate among qualified species. Those who feel unprepared may transfer out now with no academic penalty." She waited, expecting, hoping, the human would take the hint. Instead, River raised a hand. "Professor, I noticed the course materials mention will be covering survival scenarios in Type 4 caustic environments. Will we be using the standard issue protective gear, or are we allowed to bring our own solutions?" The question sent ripples of surprise through the classroom. Type 4 caustic environments could dissolve most known metals in seconds. Even discussing them made some students nervous. "Ms. Blackwood," Nixthal's resonance pitched higher with concern, "perhaps you don't fully understand. These aren't simulations. When we study caustic environments, we do so in actual caustic environments." "I understand completely," River smiled. "That's why I'm asking about equipment options. I have some ideas I'd like to test." A mantodine student named Crix chittered in amusement. "The human thinks it can survive where even crystallines fear to tread? This should be entertaining." River turned to face Crix, still smiling but with steel in her eyes. "We humans have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. When something seems impossible, that's usually just before we figure out how to do it." Nixthal's crystals chimed softly as she considered the human's words. In all her years teaching, she'd never encountered this particular brand of confidence, not arrogance or bravado, but a quiet certainty born of something she couldn't quite identify. "Very well," she declared, bringing the class to attention. "Since Ms. Blackwood is so eager to begin, we'll start with a practical demonstration. Everyone to the environmental chambers. Today's lesson, surviving the impossible." As the class filed out, Nixthal noticed River lingering behind, scribbling rapidly in a notebook. The human's expression was intent, focused, already working through whatever challenges lay ahead. For the first time, Nixthal felt a flicker of something beyond concern, curiosity about what this strange Deathworlder might be capable of. She had no way of knowing that this was just the beginning, that River Blackwood would soon turn everything the Galactic Academy thought it knew about human capabilities upside down. The environmental chamber loomed before the class like a metallic tomb. Through its reinforced viewport, caustic fog swirled in sickly yellow patterns, occasionally revealing glimpses of the obstacle course within. Professor Nixthal's crystalline form pulsed with warning colors as she addressed her students. "Today's challenge is simple: retrieve the survival beacon from the center of the chamber. The environment inside perfectly replicates the surface conditions of Nexus 6, one of the most hostile planets in charted space. River studied the chamber's readout display with intense focus. Temperature, 482 Kelvin. Atmospheric pressure, 90 times Earth standard. Acid concentration, enough to dissolve standard containment suits in minutes. Crix and the other Mantodines clicked their mandibles nervously. Even their chitinous armor would only buy them moments in those conditions. The Aerolians had already withdrawn to the far corner, their gaseous forms condensing in fear. "Professor," one of the crystalline students called out, "even our species can only withstand those conditions for approximately 30 seconds before experiencing catastrophic fracturing. How are we expected to dash?" "That's precisely the point," Nixthal interrupted. "Some environments are simply unsurvivable. Recognizing when retreat is the only option is just as important as knowing how to survive." River raised her hand. "What's the minimum time needed to reach the beacon and return?" "Theoretically, 45 seconds, Nixthal replied. "But as I was explaining dash. I'd like to try." The chamber fell silent. Even the ambient hum of the station systems seemed to quiet at River's words. "Ms. Blackwood," Nixthal's voice resonated with genuine concern, "this isn't about bravery or proving a point. The atmospheric composition will begin dissolving organic matter on contact. Your species' natural durability is impressive, but it won't help you here." River was already pulling equipment from her pack, strange components that didn't look like standard survival gear. "With respect, Professor, I didn't come here to learn what's impossible. I came to learn how to survive." She began assembling her equipment with practiced efficiency. First, a compact device that hummed to life with a soft blue glow. Then, a series of crystalline rods that she arranged in a precise pattern. Finally, a small sphere that she placed at the center of her creation. The alien students watched in fascination as River worked. Crix leaned forward, mandibles twitching. "What is this primitive technology supposed to accomplish?" "Something impossible," River replied without looking up. She made a final adjustment, then stepped back to survey her work. "Professor, I'm ready." Nixthal's crystals chimed in distress. "Ms. Blackwood, I cannot allow dash. According to Section 47B of the Academy Charter, students may attempt any survival challenge using approved or independently developed equipment, provided they accept full responsibility for the consequences." River recited the regulation from memory, then added softly, "Please trust that I know what I'm doing." The professor's form flickered with indecision before finally resonating acceptance. "Very well. But at the first sign of equipment failure, I'm initiating emergency extraction." River nodded, then activated her device. The blue glow intensified, and a shimmering field sprang up between the crystalline rods. The sphere in the center began to spin, creating a complex interference pattern. "A localized quantum field generator?" Crix chittered in disbelief. "That's ancient technology. It barely works under normal conditions." "Sometimes the old ways are the best ways," River replied, stepping into the field. "Especially when you modify them with some new ideas." "Ready, Professor." The airlock cycled. Warning klaxons blared. The chamber door opened. River moved like a dancer through the caustic fog, her quantum field deflecting the worst of the environment's fury. Each step was precisely calculated, each movement economical. The field flickered and sparked as it repelled the hostile atmosphere, but it held. 30 seconds in, she reached the beacon. 40 seconds, she was halfway back. At 43 seconds, her field generator began to whine in protest. "Ms. Blackwood." Nixthal called out in alarm. "The field is destabilizing." "Just a few more steps," River gritted through clenched teeth. The field was collapsing, wisps of caustic fog beginning to penetrate. The acid touched her skin, raising angry red welts. She dove through the airlock at 44 seconds. The door slammed shut behind her as her equipment finally failed in a shower of sparks. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then River stood up, clutching the beacon triumphantly despite her injuries. Traditional quantum fields might be unstable, she gasped, but if you modify them with Baroque wave theory and add a rotating harmonic core. She managed a pained grin. Well, sometimes 44 seconds is all you need. The alien students stared in stunned silence. Crick's mandibles hung open in shock. And Professor Nixthal. Professor Nixthal's crystalline form was resonating with an entirely new pattern, one that looked remarkably like respect. News of River's success spread through the Galactic Academy like a quantum cascade. By the next class session, the observation gallery was packed with curious faculty and students from other departments, all eager to see what the human would do next. Professor Nixthal had prepared something special. The environmental chamber had been reconfigured into a maze-like structure filled with shifting gravity wells and plasma storms. At its heart lay a simulated ship's engine core in critical meltdown. Today's exercise, Nixthal announced, her crystalline form gleaming under the emergency lights, involves reactor containment under extreme conditions. You have 15 minutes to prevent a catastrophic overload. The alien students exchanged worried glances. Even Crix, who had been quietly studying River's quantum field technology, seemed uncertain. The catch, Nixthal continued, is that you'll be working in teams of 2. And to ensure maximum learning potential, I've paired species with contrasting survival adaptations. She paused meaningfully. Crix and River will tackle the primary containment zone. The Mantidean's antennae twitched in surprise. Professor, my species' natural armor is incompatible with With my quantum field? Actually, I have an idea about that, River interrupted, already pulling out her notebook. She flipped to a page covered in complex equations and diagrams. Look at these modifications I've been working on. If we combine your chitinous resonance frequency with a modulated field. Crix leaned in despite himself, mandibles clicking thoughtfully as he studied River's calculations. This could work. But the power requirements would be enormous. Not if we use your armor as an amplification matrix, River pointed out. Your natural lattice structure is almost perfect for it. We just need to synchronize the frequencies. The observation gallery hummed with whispered conversations as the human and Mantidean worked together, mounting crystalline resonators on Crix's armor plates. Other teams were making their own preparations, but all eyes kept drifting back to the unlikely pair. When the chamber doors opened, chaos erupted immediately. The artificial gravity shifted wildly, sending several teams spinning into the walls. Plasma arcs crackled through the air, forcing the Aerolians to compress themselves into tight spheres of gas. River and Crix moved in perfect synchronization. The modified quantum field enveloped them both, with Crix's armor glowing at key points where the resonators channeled and amplified the protection. They navigated the gravity distortions by working together. When one faltered, the other compensated. The core temperature is approaching critical. Nixthal's voice rang out. 10 minutes remaining. They reached the reactor housing to find it bathed in lethal radiation. The control panel was partially melted, its interface corrupted. 2 other teams had already retreated, unable to get close enough to attempt repairs. The radiation will overwhelm your field, Crix warned, his mandibles clicking rapidly in agitation. River studied the reactor's pulsing core. Maybe we don't need to get close. Your armor, it can reflect certain energy frequencies, right? Yes, but wait. Crix's antennae straightened as he grasped her plan. If we modify the resonators to match the radiation wavelength, we can create a channeling effect, River finished. Like a lens focusing light. They worked rapidly, retuning the crystalline resonators. Crix positioned himself between River and the reactor, his armor now acting as both shield and tool. The radiation bounced off his plates in precise patterns, allowing River to reach the controls through the gaps in the lethal energy. 5 minutes. River's fingers flew over the damaged interface. The containment algorithms are locked. We need a new approach. In my species engine designs, Crix offered, straining to maintain position, we sometimes use controlled feedback loops to dash. To dampen resonance cascade. Crix, you're brilliant. The human and Mantodine moved as one, their different forms of expertise blending seamlessly. River coded while Crix maintained their protection, each trusting the other's capabilities completely. With 30 seconds remaining, the reactor's angry red glow faded to a stable blue. The gravity wells stabilized. The plasma storms dissipated. In the sudden quiet, Professor Nixthull's crystals chimed with what could only be described as astonishment. The observation gallery erupted in cheers. River turned to Crix, grinning. Not bad for a primitive Deathworlder, huh? The Mantodian's mandibles clicked in what might have been a laugh. Perhaps, he admitted, there are some advantages to thinking impossibly. The Academy's High Council chamber was rarely used for disciplinary hearings. Yet here stood Professor Nixthull, her crystalline form vibrating with barely contained emotion as she faced the assembled council members. The human's methods are unorthodox, but the results are undeniable, she argued. River Blackwood has achieved the highest practical scores in Academy history. Council member Draztal, an ancient Aurelian whose gaseous form filled an ornate containment sphere, pulsed with disapproval. By breaking every safety protocol we've established over millennia. This quantum field modification technique, it violates basic principles of environmental protection. It works, Nixthull countered. And not just for humans. Crix has already adapted the principles to enhance traditional Mantodine survival techniques. The mention of cross-species adaptation sent a ripple of unease through the council. Outside the chamber, unaware of the debate that would determine her academic future, River was conducting an impromptu workshop. A dozen students from various species surrounded her, watching intently as she demonstrated her latest modification to the quantum field generator. The key is understanding that, impossible, is just another word for, we haven't figured it out yet, River explained, adjusting a crystalline resonator. Each species has developed amazing survival adaptations. We just need to learn from each other. Crix stood nearby, his mandibles moving in the subtle patterns of Mantodine pride. Since their reactor success, he'd become River's strongest advocate among the student body. Show them the new harmonic integration, he suggested. River grinned and activated the modified generator. The quantum field sprang to life, but now it pulsed with complex patterns that mimicked the natural defenses of multiple species. A crystalline student gasped as the field adapted to match their resonance frequency perfectly. Back in the council chamber, the debate had turned heated. This is more than about one student's methods, Council member Vexthor, a crystalline elder, chimed harshly. The human is disrupting the entire foundation of our survival training. Students are questioning established protocols, experimenting with dangerous hybrid techniques. Exactly. Nixthull's form flashed with passionate colors. They're learning to think beyond their limitations. Isn't that what we're supposed to be teaching? The chamber doors suddenly burst open. Crix rushed in, his armored form clattering against the polished floor. Counselors. There's been an accident in the quantum physics lab. A containment failure, real this time, not a simulation. Draztal's gaseous form swirled in alarm. The isolation protocols have failed, Crix finished. The quantum cascade is spreading. Traditional barriers can't stop it. River's already there, he continued. She says the modified field technology might be able to contain it, but she needs permission to attempt an untested modification. One that would combine elements from all our species' protective techniques. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Combining multiple species survival adaptations on that scale had never been attempted. The energy requirements alone could tear apart the fabric of spacetime. If we don't act now, Crick's voice cut through the noise, we'll lose the entire quantum physics wing. Maybe more. Professor Nixthal turned to the council, her crystalline form pulsing with quiet determination. This is what River's been preparing for all along. Not just to survive impossible situations, but to help others survive them too. The question isn't whether her methods are traditional, it's whether we're willing to learn from them. For a moment, the chamber was silent except for the distant sound of emergency alarms. Then Council Member Draztal's containment sphere moved forward. We did not become an interstellar civilization by clinging to comfortable limitations, the ancient Aurelian pronounced. Professor Nixthal, you have our authorization. Let us see what your human student can teach us about surviving the impossible. The quantum physics lab crackled with destructive energy as River worked feverishly at the modified field generator. Around her, emergency containment barriers shattered one by one as the quantum cascade expanded. Power linkages established, Crix reported, his armored form serving as a conductor for the massive energy flows they were attempting to channel. Crystalline resonators at maximum capacity. Professor Nixthal's form pulsed with precise patterns as she coordinated with the Aurelian students, their gaseous bodies forming complex patterns to help shape the quantum fields. Whatever you're going to do, River, do it now. The cascade is approaching critical threshold. River's hands flew over the controls, implementing the theory she developed by studying every species' survival adaptations. Each of our species evolved different ways to survive impossible situations, she called out. Alone, they're impressive. Together. She activated the final sequence. The modified quantum field generator hummed to life, but this time it was different. The field that emerged wasn't just a barrier, it was a symphony of survival techniques. Crystalline lattices merged with Mantoudine harmonic patterns. Aurelian gas dynamics reinforced quantum stability matrices. And at its heart, human adaptability tied it all together. The cascade wave hit the hybrid field. For one terrible moment, nothing happened. Then the destructive energy began to fold in on itself, contained and redirected by the combined protective techniques of a dozen different species. It's working. Crix's mandibles clicked excitedly. The cascade is collapsing. River didn't celebrate yet. We need to maintain the field until the last quantum echoes dissipate. Everyone, hold your positions. They worked in perfect unity, human, Mantoudine, crystalline, Aurelian, and others, each contributing their unique strengths to the whole. When the final energy readings returned to normal, the exhausted team looked at their creation in wonder. The field is stable, River announced, checking the readings. And look at these efficiency ratings. By combining our techniques, we've created something entirely new. Professor Nixthal approached the hybrid field, her crystalline form refracting light in complex patterns of analysis. Not just a survival tool, she observed. A bridge between species. A way to share our strengths. The council members who had gathered to witness the crisis resolution moved forward. Draztal's containment sphere pulsed with thoughtful patterns. When you first arrived, Ms. Blackwood, we saw only the potential dangers of your unconventional methods. Now we see something else, the power of looking beyond our individual limitations. River stood straighter, tired but proud. On Earth, we have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. But maybe it's not just necessity. Maybe it's also understanding, really understanding, that we're stronger together than apart. Crix clicked his mandibles in agreement. The human speaks truth. I once thought their methods primitive. Now I see they were simply different. And in that difference lies opportunity. Professor Nixthal's form chimed with academic satisfaction. Perhaps it's time to rewrite our curriculum. Not just survival training, but collaborative survival. Learning not just to endure the impossible, but to overcome it together. The hybrid field continued to pulse gently, its merged patterns a testament to what could be achieved when different species chose to learn from each other rather than cling to comfortable limitations. River looked around at her alien classmates, no longer just classmates, but partners in discovery. So, she grinned, who's ready to try something else impossible? The answering chorus of enthusiastic clicks, chimes, and gaseous pulses suggested that the Galactic Academy's definition of impossible was about to change dramatically.